Living in Canada, we can seldom get our heads around what others go through. We've actually never seen war outside our doorsteps, on our lands. Some countries aren't so fortunate. Some countries have a history marred in blood, moving from one totalitarian regime to the next, from one dictator to the next, from one military coup to the next. For my project, I've been given Uganda and the Ugandan genocides. Uganda as a country, since gaining independence from the British in 1962, has endured many tumultuous periods. There have been several military coups and many civil wars. People like myself and other Canadians can only imagine what it's like to live in such a state. In this video, I'll be talking about some of the Ugandan leaders and some of the things that they have done. I'm Canadian, but I have lived abroad, and I've lived and worked with many of our foreign nationals and expats. In order to truly understand what a country and a people are feeling, you have to be from there. You have to speak the language. You have to be on the ground. The reality of the situation a lot of the times is different than what Western media reports. One thing that I have learned in my travels is one man's tyrant is another man's savior. In some places, as a leader is vilified by the Western media, in his own country they are celebrated. It's not to say that they didn't commit crimes of genocide. I just want you to think about it and understand that there are always two sides to every story. And if we look at history, history is filled with tyrants. Even from the founding fathers of the United States, the French and the British, and the histories that they left here in North America. Context can be key to understanding the reasoning for a person's actions. Western values and Western media and Western ideology play a key role in how other world leaders are portrayed. Many leaders of countries refuse to serve Western interests in their region, so therefore they suffer. For my project, I just didn't want to regurgitate facts that I found online. I wanted to create my own primary source of information. So I wanted to, I interviewed a Ugandan citizen, a man by the names of Charles Wamala. He's a very dear friend of mine that I've known for around 8 years, and Charles and I have spoken about the problems facing Uganda, their history, and their political leaders in the past. I had a chance to talk with Charles over Skype, and we talked about Uganda, Milton Obote, Idi Amin, Museveni, and I even got to ask him a couple questions about Joseph Kony. If you're unaware of who Joseph Kony is, please go Google Joseph Kony 2012. You will be very surprised at the things this man has been accused of and to have done. We covered a wide range of topics, and I feel like we had a really good discussion. So here's the interview, and I hope you enjoy it. This is my interview with Charles Wamala, a Ugandan national. He is a friend of mine that I met while living in China. I've known Charles now for going on 7 years, maybe 8, I think. I've known Charles for a long time. A very dear friend, very good guy. So first, Charles, I'd like to thank you for doing this, and
That's okay.
welcome.
That's okay.
So, Charles, what I want to do is just go over a brief history of Uganda and some of the conflicts that have taken place in Uganda. And then we're going to move into
Mm,
your personal experiences when Museveni took power of the country.
okay.
And I want to
Mm-hmm.
start with tribes and then move
Mm,
into each Ugandan leader kind of one by one and ask a couple questions about each of them.
okay, cool.
All right, thank you. So, Charles,
That's okay.
most people living in Canada have no clue about tribal connections and being part of one. Can you briefly describe the three major tribes in Uganda?
First, uh, the first and foremost, the three major tribes in Uganda, as per the last population census, are not Baganda, Lango and Acholi. Um, Banyankore and Basoga are the major tribes in Uganda. So the tribal connection is highlighted by a different language and a culture. Uh, of the tribes, like of each of the tribes. So basically, Uganda has over 59 tribes, and each of these tribes speak a different language. We were recently ranked one of the most naturally diverse, nations on Earth. Like ethnically diverse nations on Earth. So Baganda are the largest tribe in Uganda and majorly stay in central Uganda. The name Uganda was got from Buganda, which is the title of the kingdom of Buganda, called Buganda Kingdom.
Okay. Um,
And with this, with our leader, called the Kabaka, Luganda is the language spoken by Baganda, and is hello, Adam, can you hear me?
I hear you perfect. Keep going.
Adam,
Yeah, I
yeah,
hear you.
okay. So Baganda, Luganda is the language spoken Baganda, and it's the locally most widely spoken language in Uganda after English, the national language. Baganda belong to the Bantu-speaking people. They actually are the tribe from northern Uganda, and majorly in a district called Gulu. This prominence when Obote was president. The Lango, also a tribe from northern Uganda, who also came to prominence during the reign of Obote, and they speak Langi.
Okay. Okay.
You know. Mm.
Um, so how does what tribe you're a part of come into play in your daily life?
Well, the tribe you belong to in Uganda can have a very big influence on what you can become in your social, economical. Was the case when Amin was president with the Kakwa, his tribe, Obote with the Acholi and Langi, and Museveni with Banyankore and Bachiga. Favors and resources are distributed on tribal lines, and the tribe in power takes the day most times. That is why currently Banyankore, who are the tribe from Museveni, who has ruled for 30 years, control all spheres of life in Uganda, be it business, politics, or even political opposition or civil society. You know. So basically, intermarriages happen among all tribes, but this doesn't erase tribal differences.
Okay. So when getting married to a person from
In
another,
cases of applying for a job, getting the actual job could be determined. Yeah. Mm. Hello, Adam, can you hear
yeah,
me?
yeah, I can hear you. You're breaking up a little bit
Mm.
on my end, but I'm okay. I'm okay. Um,
Okay.
so I'm gonna move into my follow-up question. So when getting married
Okay.
to a person with another tribe, how does that
Mm.
work? Does the man go live with the woman, or the woman go live with the man, or kind of how what happens when you marry across tribal lines?
Normally, the wife goes and lives with the man, and it all depends because like Uganda, we have Bantu speaking in the south. We are like 17 tribes in the Bantu speaking, and then we have Nilotes in the north. So basically, when a man marries a woman from a different tribes, a woman comes lives with a man, but there are still differences. Like I said, it doesn't erase the tribal differences. Like sometimes people from the north, when they get married to people from the south, each of them wants kids to learn their language, so they will end up speaking English at home, instead of the husband having their kids learn their language, or the wife having their kids learn her mother tongue,
Okay. Okay.
you know. Mm.
So can you tell us what
Mm.
tribe you belong to and what it kind of means to be Muganda and what it's like to be part of the Buganda tribe?
I'm a Muganda, and this means I'm part of the most influential tribe in the nation, which I'm so proud of. Baganda, we are the genesis of the nation called Uganda. Being and belonging to this tribe brings many positives. since Baganda very friendly, welcoming people, and we have a rich culture. So Buganda, even before colonialism came to Uganda, had a system of leadership set up with a structure similar to modern democracy. And it's these structures colonialists used to take control of the whole of Uganda. In fact, Buganda was the most powerful kingdom that was ruling all the kingdoms in this region before the creation of the country, Uganda.
Okay. Okay.
Adam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. 1862, the British leave and Uganda gains independence. Um, Obote started off as the prime minister, but then seized power and became the president. What do people say about his first term in Uganda?
The first president of Uganda was Sir Edward Mutesa, who was then the Kabaka of Uganda, as well as, president. And Obote was prime minister from 1962 until 1966, when he made a mini coup d'etat to oust President Mutesa. People in central Uganda like Obote's first reign, because he deposed their king and a president using the military, which was commanded by the military commander Idi Amin, who was later to depose Obote in 1972. However, the Langi and Acholi would give you a different story because the rise of Obote as president in 1966 brought people belonging to these tribes from obscurity to political prominence in Uganda.
Okay. So, how is Obote viewed in the history books in Uganda?
Obote is portrayed as a leader who was a very bad president in history books in Uganda, because normally in Africa, when a president leaves power, the next regime writes history about the predecessor in a negative way to demonize his legacy. That is why you wouldn't find literature in academia circles in Uganda praising Obote.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. In 1971, Idi Amin, probably one of the most famous African leaders, seized power in a military coup. What can you tell me about how he came to power and some of the things that he did to hold that power?
Okay. Uh, President Obote had for long planned to assassinate Amin, who was the army commander, though all the attempts ended in vain. Remember, Amin was Kakwa and Obote is Langi, so the tribal thing again. So Amin, with knowledge of this, was also working around to see Obote ousted because, and he used the golden chance when Obote had traveled to attend the Commonwealth Nations Conference in Singapore. Amin had a very good intelligence network bolstered by his agency that was called the State Research Bureau, that gathered all information on who was plotting against the regime and swiftly swung into action to thwart any attempts of those dissidents.
Okay.
Amin also used fear mongering to scare his enemies. Through this, he could publicly hang or put rebels on firing squads in public parks to scare off anyone who would want to become a rebel, like that. So, lastly, though the Western world paints a picture of Amin as a very brutal man, he was somehow popular and loved in some circles in Uganda, and many consider him as the most patriotic president ever. And yes, Amin was a very intelligent person, something many biased analysts would deny. They would deny that.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta ask, there's a lot of rumors about Idi Amin in the
Mm,
Western world, and one of the ones
mm,
that I'm gonna ask you about is the
mm,
cannibalism. And
mm.
is there any truth to this rumor? What do people say about the Western
Absolutely
rumors
not.
about him?
No, absolutely not. I think it's because Amin was mostly hated by outsiders than with the locals. So people came up with all sorts of things, to tarnish his image. But in Uganda, nobody will ever tell you. I've spoken to people that worked during Amin's regime, that worked for Amin's government. People my father's age, they tell me nothing like that ever happened. Amin was never a cannibal. He never ate anyone. They try to make movies depicting Amin, as a cannibal eating his son, but none of that ever happened. you
Okay.
know Amin never ate anyone. Yeah, he wasn't a cannibal.
Okay. Your father worked for the Ugandan government from 1973 to 1986. Uh, can you
Mm.
tell? Can you tell what did he do, and how much of what was happening were the people in the government aware of?
Well, my dad worked for the Ministry of Lands and
Charles, you still there, buddy?
Surveying, or Lands and Natural
Sorry, Charles.
Resources. He
Charles.
was a surveyor.
Charles.
He knew a lot was going on, but yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Adam?
Yeah. Sorry,
Hello,
you
hello,
broke.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, hello,
you broke up really bad. Can
Adam.
you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, sorry.
Can you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep. You broke up really bad.
Yeah, you.
Can, can you start again for me?
Okay, yeah. Sorry, it's raining here. It's raining so heavily here.
Okay.
I think this is okay. The thing you did ask about my dad,
Yep.
like he used to work for the government. Yeah,
Yep.
my dad was a surveyor, like an engineer, qualified in surveying. He worked for the Ministry of Natural Resources. He knew a lot was going on, but he was not in intelligence, right? So there is, like people like in his line of work, they knew of a few things. Like they got most of the information from the media, just like the rest of the public.
Okay. Okay.
Right? They were just working like normal, government workers. They knew that during Amini's time, everything was, like cool. Like they would get good money. There was no corruption in the government. There was no nepotism. There was no tribalism. During like people were being recruited on merit, not because they know somebody, right? This is what he told me, that things were really not that bad, especially in the first 5 years of Amini's time in power.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna ask you next. Have you seen The Last King of Scotland? And what do you think of this movie being Ugandan?
Yeah, I've seen actually this movie twice. What the movie depicts is what the British regime thought of President Amin at the time, and not what exactly was happening. The movie is highly hinged on the biases that Western nations had on his presidency, and anyone who truly would want to know and understand the Amin presidency would be grossly misled if they used the movie as a source of any credible information. You know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just give me a sec. I'm gonna restart the recording here. You know, Charles, the international community has some very harsh words about Idi Amin. I'm just kind of
Mm.
curious what his legacy is like in Uganda, and what do people think and say about him today?
Yeah, like I said before, in Uganda, some sections of society were really grateful to his leadership, like the Muslim community and his tribe mates. However, many feel that he was high-handed in the way he handled contentious issues, and that gave him an image of being so brutal. However, he set up many national projects in form of structure that even the Museveni regime, the 30-year-old regime, hasn't been able to do. That's very true. So for the international community, it could have been an issue of him refusing to be a proxy for international hegemonies of that time, like the US and Britain, and they decided to demonize his image through only portraying his downside. You know, this is what all majority of believe because people really, even when you come to Uganda now, people will be like, we wish Amin was here. This is what people say on the streets of Uganda. You'll be surprised. People still love him. And they wonder why Museveni refused to bring back Amin's body to be buried, in Uganda.
Okay. Okay.
Adam, are you there?
Yeah, I'm
Hello?
here.
Yeah.
After Idi Amin was exiled, Uganda had 3 interim presidents
Restarting?
in
Okay.
18 months before Milton Obote won the election that was thought to be rigged. What do people think of Obote's second term?
Okay. Uh, Actually, I have vivid memories. Like I was like 8 or 7. Obote was just appointed by the parliament to become president because even the election was held when he was still in exile. But UPC members, I mean, UPC is Obote's political party, Uganda People's Congress, had a secret ploy to of appointing him as president if they got majority of the seats in parliament through the fraudulent elections of 1980 that were rigged in their favor. So basically, he won no election. Ugandans, according to records, and on what those who witnessed his rule say, indicate that Uganda was characterized by a high level of insecurity and turmoil under Obote's second reign, uh, with tribal fights amongst the Acholi and the Lani that hugely led to his ouster from power. Besides, many rebel movements fighting his government sprung up because he was so unpopular nationwide. Remember, um, Tito Okello Lutwa was an Acholi and he was Obote's army commander. So after there was a massive recruitment of Langids into the military, because Obote feared if the Acholis uh, outnumbered the Langis in the military, he would be, ousted. So he had this massive drive to recruit more and more Langis, something that didn't go down with actually army commander. Like we said before, everything goes back to, the tribal thing, tribal lines.
Yeah.
You know, Nobody was really unpopular.
So
Hello,
Obote's.
Adam, can you hear me?
Yep. I can hear you, Charles.
All right.
Obote's second term was a very bloody affair. He was fighting 3 different civil wars within Uganda. One against the remains of Idi Amin's troops in the West Nile area. The second was against the UFM, the Ugandan Freedom Movement. Lastly, against the future and current president of Uganda, Museveni's National Resistance Army. Can you just tell me what happened to the people around these conflicts?
A lot of terrible things happened to people, during the 1980, 1985, period. Um, Massacres, especially in Luwero Triangle, which was the stronghold of rebels that were led by current President Museveni. However, either sides contributed to death, both government and rebel ranks. Destruction of property and livelihoods for those who stayed alive in the impact zones, and up to now, no deserving compensation has been awarded by the sitting victorious Museveni, who was the rebel, to these people in such areas. Because I remember uh, after Museveni uh, took over in 1987, we went to the village, my ancestral village, not far from Kampala. It's just 15 kilometers from Kampala, and we had um, we had to dig graves, to find our relatives that were buried in mass, like mass graves. We lost 15 relatives in the war, and the roads were impassable. My father's coffee factory was burned to the ground. Like his 500 heads of cattle were eaten by both the rebels and the government soldiers. None of that was ever compensated up to now, 30 years on. People lost a lot of things, a lot. People died. There are so many massive graves in Uganda that, they don't want to talk about that. It was terrible. It was really bad.
Okay.
You know.
The drive your family took, I think you told me it was about 3 kilometers, but it took you 9 hours. Can you tell me a little bit more about this drive? When was it? Where were you guys going? And what was kind of happening?
Actually, Adam, we were not even driving. We didn't drive. We left our car in the backyard. We walked. We walked 50 kilometers because we had to take, like we didn't walk on main roads. We walked through like coffee plantations, banana plantations, we walked through hills, valleys. It was very, very dangerous to drive because the soldiers were all over. Soldiers from the government forces, and different rebel factions that were stationed all around Kampala. So it was really dangerous because there were so many guns. We had to walk through, like some dense, like vegetation. It was really bad. People lost a lot of property. I remember people were like dropping their bags, suitcases, because people tend to run with all their property when they are running away from these conflict zones. But luckily, we didn't lose any family member that time because I remember back then we were only 4 kids at home. It was before my other siblings were born. You
Okay.
know, yeah, I have vivid memories of that. And I don't want to ever see that again.
Okay. Museveni just won another election, but he is getting old. At the age of
Mm,
71, he probably doesn't have many years left in power. Since the end
mm,
of colonialism in Uganda, there really hasn't been
mm,
a peaceful transfer of power from one president to the next. Who do you
mm.
feel the next president or the next leader of Uganda will be, and do you fear what the political future brings?
I feel the last chance Uganda had for peaceful political transition was to have occurred during the recently completed presidential elections, the 2016 presidential elections that were unfortunately reached in favor of the incumbent Museveni to extend his rule to a possibility 35 years. This means the nation for now has a people that are immensely politically polarized, and the fault lines are expanding each day. The sheer huge numbers of people that are disgruntled by the current 30-year-old regime would clearly mean it can only be a miracle if Uganda will get any transition from this regime to another. The population feels now it's the number one enemy. You know, uh, hello,
Yeah, I'm
Adam,
here.
can
I'm
you hear
listening.
me? Yeah, people are upset. And we feel that um, Museveni is the number one enemy of the state. And the only thing keeping Museveni in power is the international community that uses him to fight our proxy wars and dealings in most of sub-Saharan Africa. But Ugandans have wanted him out since 2006, though he uses his stealth military and all state institutions that are in his pockets to cling onto power. Um, and we think, and it's very, very clear that Museveni is grooming his son uh, to become. His son is currently the lead, the commander of the special forces. And special forces are part of the presidential guard brigade. So we think that he's grooming his son, and by the time he chooses to retire, probably his son is going to stand for election. So lastly, the alarming levels of young people or youth who make up 75% of the population, and 83% of them unemployed, would make it inevitable for the conflict time bomb. You know, it will be like it would detonate very soon. This is what we all think.
Does that concern you?
Adam, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, it concerns me a lot, because as a person that was um, as a person that has seen war before. I was young, but I know war is dangerous. War is expensive. So this really concerns me. It concerns me a lot, because if somebody cannot agree to a peaceful transfer of power, and they only think of using the military as the only means to cling to power, that is a very, very dangerous precedent. I think something has to be done. You know, Unfortunately, um, all state institutions are corrupt. And the guy has them in his pockets. So we think there is going to be a very big problem. Like the political future is very, very uncertain. You, yeah, the president scrapped presidential term limits. They amended the constitution to allow him to stay in power forever. That is very dangerous, because that means he has no intentions. I mean, he has no intention of leaving power anytime soon. And there has been a lot of talk that he's grooming his son, like I said before. He's grooming his son to become the president, because they've stolen a lot of stuff. I mean, state enterprises um, all have been sold. They said they sold. Privatization is good for the country, but the nation hasn't benefited from privatization, because everything has been sold among themselves. I mean, the group of people that came from the bush, that fought the Bush War. So the country, Uganda as a country, has nothing left. It's all been stolen. You know, it's all being stolen by a few people in power,
Okay.
and that is very bad for the future of the country.
It is. It is. I wouldn't be able
Mm.
to get away, I don't think, without asking about him. And I think I know
Mm.
I think you know who I'm going to ask about lastly, because he's about the only person in Uganda that we haven't touched. But
Yeah.
um in the
Mm.
Western world, you know, uh
Mm.
in 2012, Kony became very popular. and there
mm,
was
mm,
a Get Coney 2012, and it sounded more like a
mm.
presidential election campaign than
Yeah,
actually
yeah, I saw that video.
trying to get a rebel commander. Can you do
Mm,
what is known about Coney right now in Uganda, today? And the next
mm.
question is, do you believe he's still alive even?
First, I'm gonna tell you about what I think happened. Back in the day, like my uncle was in the military. My late uncle, he was a part of the soldiers that fought Connie. At first, we people in the South thought that Connie wasn't really real. We were like, we thought it was a joke. I mean, what kind of guy says is the Lord's Resistance Army? But it turns out it was true. It was true. The guy uh, killed a lot of people in the North. Actually, the people of the North have suffered a lot. You know, uh, Coney killed his own actually people, like the people of the North, and we were wondering what kind of person kills his own, like tribesmen. Because recently I was in the North. It was my first time to cross the Victoria now to northern Uganda, because I have actually friends. And I was like, is it true this guy was killing people here, or was it being exaggerated by the media? And my friends in the north, and like people from the north in general, don't want to talk about Connie because it brings back like really bad memories, very bad memories. Because this guy pushed people. He used to attack people in the night. He would slaughter people, cut off their nose, cut off their ears, poke out their eyes. I mean, for no good reason. You know, and then majority of these people ended up in like camps. Like they were sent to camps,
Refugee
like
camp.
refugee camps. Yeah, because they wouldn't stay in their houses because Connie was attacking them, killing them. But Connie, we all don't understand his true intentions, because a person that fights is fighting, for power. If you resort to things like killing your own people, raping women, and taking them away thousands of miles away, we don't understand what your true intentions are. So yes, Connie was real. And the last question you did ask, yeah, I do believe he's alive, because none of like he's never been captured. They've captured like his closest allies, I mean his closest commanders,
Yeah, they recently
like
got
one
one of his
guy.
high-ranking generals, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and he's
and
in a
he's going on
Hague,
war crimes tribunal, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he's going. So, I believe Coney is still there. The Americans sent 100 soldiers and together with the UPDF to hunt down Coney in the jungles of the Congo and Central African Republic. You know, but these days nobody talks about Coney because northern Uganda is peaceful. I've been there. It's peaceful. It's so peaceful. I spent New Year's Eve there. It was really fantastic.
People would rather forget
I
about him,
enjoyed
eh?
it. Yeah, people, they will never forget, but now they don't want to think about Coney because there is peace in Uganda. There
Okay.
is peace everywhere in Uganda.
Yeah. I have
Oh,
one more question for you. Do you
okay,
think
cool.
that Kony is just kind of sitting, waiting, biding his time until maybe Museveni steps down and there's a weaker
Mm,
leader in power? Like if he gives the power to his son or Museveni dies,
mm,
maybe is do you think Kony would
mm,
try to make
mm.
a play for power?
I highly doubt Coney would be able to come back to like to fight in Uganda. He would never come back because you know what? I think there was some kind of support that was being given to Coney by the local communities because they hated people from the south.
Hmm.
They kind of thought that Connie would fight for the actual people, maybe, right? But right now, I don't think there is any northerner in their right mind that would, rally behind Connie to fight against any regime that would come after Museveni because, you support Connie, you die, right? Like the Ugandan army committed atrocities in the north. They don't want to talk about it, right? Because there is a time when they were so desperate and they were being attacked by people in civilian clothes, and these were the farmers and rebels. So they kind of killed indiscriminately. So nobody wants to lose their kids. Nobody wants to lose their lives just because they wanna get back to power. I don't think Kony has a chance ever, because the Ugandan military is, that is one thing I credit Museveni. The Ugandan military is well equipped and is strong. It can, fight anyone. You know, I don't think Kony has a chance to ever come back to Uganda, to northern Uganda, let alone the south. He cannot.
Okay.
There is no way he's gonna. Yeah.
Right now, as it stands, there's quite a bit of political uncertainty in Uganda with the high youth unemployment rate and repressive laws against homosexuals that they just brought into place last year. Uganda is a political powder keg, and never having a peaceful transition between leaders makes it even more scary for the future of Uganda and the citizens. I think that we'll see more atrocities come out of Uganda in the very near future, I believe within 5 to 10 years. So keep the people of Uganda in your thoughts, and make sure you pay attention to the situation, because I do feel that things will get crazy there very soon, within the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and c'est la vie.